I like this outfit that I'm wearing today, therefore I realized I have to crystallize it on the internet in the form of a YouTube video. Unfortunately, I now finally have enough characters to talk about. Something I've wanted to talk about for about 48 hours now. Fictional characters I absolutely despise. No, stop it! I'm the man! I'm supposed to take care of myself. Alex is killing me! Alex is killing me! Alex is killing me! Alex is killing me! And if you're wondering if you can join, you cannot. It is. This is a mistake. Doing this to my hair was a mistake. This looks ridiculous. This looks like bedhead. This looks like 14-year-old boy bedhead. I did not want to go for 14-year-old boy bedhead, but yet we have 14-year-old boy bedhead. Okay. So I wanted to make a rant video about fictional characters that I don't think get the hate that they deserve. And I originally had 3, and I realized I didn't want to do a video where I just complained about men the entire time.
Because goodness knows I do that.
Fortunately, I have one girl. There are a lot of different villains in movies I could have picked, but these are particular characters that by the end of the film we are supposed to love, and I just don't think they deserve that applause by the end of the movie. The first one I want to talk about is Penny Peterson from Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Now, Mr. Peabody and Sherman is a DreamWorks animated film based off these 2 characters named Mr. Peabody and Sherman from the Rocky and Bullwinkle show. The premise of the film is Sherman is a 7-year-old boy who was adopted as a baby by the smartest being in the world, who happens to be a dog. This dog, Mr. Peabody, is a jack-of-all-trades Renaissance dog who knows how to do pretty much any kind of skill imaginable. The story is Sherman navigating the challenges of public school, starting at 2nd grade for whatever reason, as a kid who doesn't really fit in.
A nerd, a child of a single parent, an adopted child. His dad's a dog.
He navigates bullies. Eventually, he and this one bully end up getting trapped on a journey through time and space. At the end, the 2 of them become friends.
Sort of.
Also, Mr. Peabody almost loses custody of Sherman because social workers try to determine whether it's fitting for a dog to actually adopt a human child, and at the end we have a nice little Spartacus moment where everybody raises his hand and says, "I'm a dog too." And that's basically the plot of the movie. Now, Penny Peterson. What really launches the conflict of the story is Penny's relentless bullying of Sherman. Sherman and Penny have some brief interaction before the big fight in the cafeteria, but it basically shows that Penny is kind of challenged by Sherman and really doesn't like him. So, in the cafeteria, Penny confronts him.
What do you got there, Sherman? Kibbles or bits?
She humiliates him, torments him, and things get physical. So this is something that I really hated was never pointed out in the film. Everybody acts like Sherman's behavior towards Penny,
Where he bit her?
was unreasonable, but if you actually watch the clip, she is choking him.
Give it back! Jump, doggy, jump! I'm not a dog! Come on, Sherman! Just admit it, you're a dog! Say, let me go! Not until you beg like a dog. Come on, Sherman, beg!
She's assaulting him first. I would argue that biting her was an act of self-defense, and the only evidence that is presented to Mr. Peabody later is a picture of the bite, a school picture of Sherman, and a picture of Penny making puppy dog eyes. The main villain of the movie is probably Mrs. Grunion. She is the social worker who tries to take Sherman away from Mr. Peabody. I actually hate Penny way more because Mrs. Grunion, we're supposed to hate her. She's designed to be gross and ugly and obnoxious. She's very traditional, very classic, very by the book, except when it comes to her marriage to Agamemnon. Penny, for whatever reason, we're supposed to fall in love with her. Penny is so evil. She's manipulative of the adults around her. She uses her charms and her physical looks to literally seduce and manipulate Sherman at several points. And I know it's creepy to say that the 7-year-old girl is using seduction, but look at these clips. That is literally what she's doing. Besides, she was animated and designed by grown men.
Probably.
Supposed to be having father-son time with Mr. Peabody.
Wouldn't you rather have fun with me?
Okay.
In response to the fight, Mr. Peabody suggests that The Petersons come to his house so that the two families can kind of resolve the issues and the kids can become friends, and there Penny tries to manipulate Sherman into showing her the time-traveling device that Mr. Peabody built, and she does this by yelling in his face and poking him and pushing him into a wall. So not only is she manipulative, not only is she a bully, but she also shows that she is willing to physically assault. She's a real Veruca Salt. Right? She's an absolute monster because of how she was raised, but that doesn't stop her from being any less of a monster just because, oh man, this was her backstory. She's 7 years old. She's always gotten everything she wants, and she's learned that if she's just cute to adults, they will literally treat her like a little angel. She totally is. Lost in ancient Egypt, Penny is then rescued by Mr. Peabody and Sherman, and instead of being grateful, she is dismissive and resentful because she is planning on marrying King Tut.
Would you like me to have them skinned, covered with honey, and laid in a pit of fire ants?
You'd do that for me.
But even worse...
Spoiler alert. King Tut dies young. Are you sure you've thought this through?
Oh, trust me, I thought it through. I'm getting everything.
Really manipulative and disgusting, and Penny is just a horrible, evil character, and I absolutely despise this 7-year-old girl's guts.
And of course we find out, oh, well, it wasn't so easy for women to gold dig back in the day because the wives were killed along with their husbands. And that's when Penny decides to be rescued and leave. All the adult characters seem to think that the reason Sherman hates Penny for literally being a bully is because
he secretly has a crush on her.
And as we find out, the two 7-year-olds seem to have a little bit of romantic chemistry with each other. Penny just is really manipulative and selfish. She never comes clean to Mrs. Grunion that she lied until after Mrs. Grunion is trying to take Sherman away from Mr. Peabody. She just really doesn't get the consequences she deserves, and her friendship with Mr. Peabody and Sherman by the end of the story just feels really undeserved, and how did we even get here? The second fictional character I wanted to talk about is probably pretty controversial. It is Laurie from Little Women. Now, disclaimer, I watched the 1994 version with Winona Ryder, and I watched the 2019 version with Saoirse O'Brien. I have never read the book, so I don't really have the most accurate description of Laurie's personality. If anyone read Little Women and feels so inclined, please explain to me in the comments if I got anything wrong about Laurie's personality. But Little Women is basically about a family of 4 girls in the North during the Civil War, and the story watches them grow up after the Civil War ends and become young women as they navigate the world, and marriage and relationships and jobs. And at the beginning of the story, Theodore Lawrence is just the mysterious boy next door. He goes by Laurie. One character named Joe specifically calls him Teddy, and he gets close to the girls in the March family. I think that over time, because Joe was the closest girl that Laurie had ever been to, Laurie eventually just developed feelings for Joe. Laurie meets the family when he is almost 16 years old, and he proposes to Joe when the two of them are roughly 22. And that is when the story starts getting uncomfortable.
I would rather hang myself than realize this, Joe.
Teddy.
I would rather be dead.
Teddy, don't say that.
Laurie kind of disappears in Europe and starts becoming a bad boy and getting drunk and skipping classes and being lazy. And that's when Laurie runs into Joe's younger sister, Amy, and almost immediately starts hitting on her, making advances toward her, expressing interest in her. So Amy is 3 years younger than Laurie, and that's not really a big deal because Laurie is about 23 and Amy is about 20 when the two of them are interacting in Europe. I mean, when I was 18, I would have been okay dating a 22-year-old. Instead, I dated a 34-year-old, but that is beside the point. Get over that already! I actually heavily relate to Joe in the story. Joe is this misunderstood tomboy who has a temper and feels disconnected from her family and everyone around her. She never wants a boyfriend. She never wants to get married until she eventually falls for this European man about 20 years older than her. And then she's like, yeah, now I want to get married. Now, Amy and Laurie meet when they are roughly 12 and 15. But again, they don't get married until Amy is about 20 and Laurie is about 23. Problem is Laurie playing on the dynamic that he and Amy used to have when Amy is a little girl. In the 1994 version, there's a scene where after Beth falls ill of scarlet fever, Amy, who is about 13 years old at this point,
I don't want to die. I've never even been kissed.
Tell you what, I promise to kiss you. before you die.
I guess I found that particularly gross. I read a book several years ago when I was about 14 about a girl who grew up around a much older man, 5-6-year-old girl, and he was a man in his early 20s or something like that. And she confides in him, like, you know,
I want to marry you when I grow up.
and he's like,
I'll wait for you, I promise.
and you think it's like sweet and innocent and harmless at first, and then she's 14 and he's 29, and now he's trying to date her.
Anyways, I am not accusing Laura of being a pervert.
He really wasn't that close to Amy as she was growing up in order to groom her into eventually becoming his little wife. That wasn't happening, but I do see him sort of playing on her schoolgirl crush on him, her interest in him as an older brother or as the cool older boy next door, whereas obviously the older sisters, Jo and Meg, are gonna be like, yeah, Laurie, he's just a boy.
Oh, Teddy.
You're the only one that ever calls me that, Jo. Teddy.
What does Amy call you?
My lord.
Especially in the 2019 version, when Amy is finally 20 and she can tell that Laurie is hitting on her, she's like,
I have been second to Jo my whole life in everything. And I will not be the person you settle for just because you cannot have her.
And the 1994 version makes it clear.
Then how do you explain your jealousy?
I envy her happiness. I envy his happiness. I envy John Brooke for marrying Meg. I hate Fred Vaughn. If Beth had a lover, I would despise him too. Just as you have always known you would never marry a pauper. I have always known I should be part of the March family.
I do not wish to be loved for my family.
Finally, the 2019 version of Little Women makes it very clear that Laurie is still a little bit hooked on Jo.
I'm not going.
Yes, you are. Amy is right. Exactly.
Never thought I'd prepare a carriage to help Jo March chase a man, but I like it.
I feel like this is probably the most agreed upon if you are familiar with this franchise. So, After is a franchise created by Stephanie Myers. I forgot her name. Somebody look it up for me. My producer can look it up for me. But it's basically a literal fan fiction.
About Harry Styles, okay?
It's about this innocent, young, fresh schoolgirl named Tessa, who falls for this bad boy named Hardin Scott, who is this kind of
emo, brooding, dark British lad who happens to be going to Washington University dressed like Tessa.
Literally how they end up in a relationship is Hardin bets by his friends behind Tessa's back that he can take her virginity. By the way, I didn't watch any of the After movies and I'm not interested in watching any of them, but I've watched enough reviews by multiple content creators where I'm pretty familiar with the plots and at least the dynamic between Tessa and Hardin, which is what I'm most interested in. They break up by the end of the movie, but as I mentioned before, with all these characters, they don't get the consequences they deserve. And I really hate that by the end of the movie, Hardin writes this really stupid declaration of love where he's like,
I've read hundreds of novels in my life, most of them claiming that love was the center of the universe, that it could heal any damage inside of us, that it was what we need to survive. From Darcy to Heathcliff, I thought they were fools, that love was something fictional, only found in worn pages of a book. But that has all changed since I met my Elizabeth Bennet. I never thought I would find myself completely and utterly consumed by another until her. She took my hand and led me out of the darkness and showed me that whatever our souls are made of, hers and mine are the same. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
For the next 5 episodes, I think there are 5 films, right? There are 5 films and that's it, right? Okay, cool. In each of them, Hardin just becomes increasingly more abusive, manipulative, and toxic. Hardin really has classic borderline personality disorder. He has horrible mood swings. He turns himself into the victim all the time. He's explosive. Tiniest things can set him off. He always makes it Tessa's problem, and he makes her miserable. He has such an intense fear of abandonment that it leads him to self-sabotage with Tessa all the time. He treats her like absolute garbage, and then gets upset when she looks for other men, especially when the two of them aren't dating. Every single other man she comes in contact with, they already have a better first interaction because literally the first interaction— oh my goodness, the first interaction.
How did you even get in here? Okay. Can you please go out into the hall so I can get dressed?
Don't flatter yourself. I'm not looking.
But it wasn't until watching reviews, especially by the time After 2 came out, that I really felt a personal connection. The way Hardin treats Tessa is 100% the exact same way my ex-girlfriend treated me in 2021 and 2022. After 3, there's a scene where Tessa gets a job in Chicago, and Hardin is like,
"You're going away in a week. You haven't bothered to even tell me."
Well, when was I supposed to tell you? Because you left.
I came back for you.
I couldn't get a hold of you for 9 days. I didn't know if I'd ever see you again. I was hoping that you would come with me.
I was hoping that we could move to London after graduation.
And how was I supposed to know that?
But I mean, it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? Because you've made up your mind, you've got a plan, you've envisioned your life in a way that doesn't even have me in it.
You are in it. I get that you're angry, and we do need to talk about this, except I have to get to class.
That's really big of you, to find time in your busy schedule. Thank you.
My girlfriend would have 100% said the exact same thing. She would have made up this expectation for me in her head, and once it turned out I wouldn't be able to fulfill it, she would be like, well, it doesn't matter anymore, does it? Always turning herself into the victim, and she was also British as well. And specifically, After 3,
relationships are complicated.
The only people she talks to are people who back Hardin first. That's the problem. She's surrounding herself with a bunch of Hardin supporters. If you ever find yourself surrounded by Hardin supporters, you've messed up.
They're all enablers of Hardin. They all encourage her to stay with him because she made him better. And I relate to this so much because I spent a lot of time with people online who knew my girlfriend or my girlfriend's family, and they all enabled her and encouraged me to stay with her and that I was making her life better. Don't surround yourself with a bunch of people who are going to always choose your abuser over you. The thing that all 4 of these characters I hate have in common is all these people I'm talking about are manipulative, abuser, blah blah blah, etc. type people. Already, by After 2, her behavior is so different than it was in movie 1.
Can you hold that elevator, please?
Did you call me?
No, I didn't.
When you're in an abusive relationship and you refuse to get out of it, you start building up these defense mechanisms that kind of make you a more insufferable person, but they're literally defense mechanisms because you're being abused all the time. The best ending for the movie would have been for Tessa and Hardin to break up and Hardin to die.
I don't even care. I want Hardin to die.
Like, that's how much I hate him. Finally, the last guy on this list is a character who, like, he was actually a real person, but I'm mostly going to be talking about the musical character, film character, Nick Arnstein in Funny Girl. Funny Girl is a 1968 movie musical starring Barbara Streisand and some dude. Oh my goodness, I forgot his name. Omar something or other. I'll put it up here. My editor can put it up here. The film stars the 2 of them as Fanny Brice and Nick Arnstein, and first of all, I just want to get out of the way, the relationship begins between a teenager and somebody 11 years older than her. Maybe she was a teenager of age, if you will. I think the story originally takes place in the early 1900s, the Ziegfeld Follies. The story follows this young girl who's starry-eyed about the theater.
But she's just not that pretty.
Barbara Streisand is drop-dead gorgeous. She's one of my female celebrity crushes. She was, when she was younger and more beautiful, but, like, still hold a special place for me in my heart. I'm gonna go kill myself, goodbye. The premise that Barbara Streisand, or that Fanny, is not the prettiest girl is important because it really shows how easy it is for Nick to
manipulate her
by just telling her that she's beautiful over and over again. So already, Nick Arnstein is a groomer.
11 years older than her, interacting with her when she's a teenager.
Groomer!
Despise! One of the worst things you could ever be. Just worst. Like... It gets worse, though. It gets worse. Did you know it gets worse? It actually gets worse. I can't speak because I'm so angry. Nick Arnstein takes her on a dinner date where there's a weird little bed, love seat, cushion, couch thing in the room, and the entire—
Oh my god, this scene is so uncomfortable.
You.
Huh?
Are woman. I am man. You
are smaller, so I can be taller than.
Fanny wasn't born yesterday. She's like, there's a bed in here. I assume I'm gonna be losing my virginity on that cushion.
But guess who is gonna be dessert?
She's a teenager. This is disgusting. I hate this scene.
Well, at least you think I'm special. You ordered a la carte. It's a feeling.
I genuinely don't know if Barbara is going for I'm being seduced or I'm afraid of getting raped.
You are someone I've admired. Still, our friendship leaves something to be desired.
I can't tell if she's into it or if she's terrified, but I would be terrified in this situation.
Well, that's literally only because you're asexual. Like, you wouldn't get it. Like, real women find this attractive.
Should I do the things he'll tell me to?
Rapey song, very rapey.
I hate this character so much, I wish horrible things about him. I hope he dies brutally.
So after taking away her virginity,
because of course he does that,
he's sort of like,
yeah, I have business. We can't be together. It's too inconvenient for me.
So of course, Fanny, being the starry-eyed teenage girl she is, runs after him across the world because I would too if I were in that situation. Anyways, I don't know if I made this clear from the beginning, but
Nick Arnstein doesn't really have a job.
He's just a professional gambler.
It may be trash, but it's my trash. The entire time up until this point, Fanny has been like, can you please marry me? Like,
can you please just marry me? Can we get married? Like, I want to get married. Let's marry. Okay, can we get married?
Why does it feel like Barbara Streisand's character is always a character who is proposing to men?
I want to marry you.
Don't you want to?
That's not the point.
So do I, so we should do it together. Look, I never thought I'd get married again. You'd be lucky to have me.
Goodbye.
What?
Goodbye.
What are you talking about?
Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.
Nonsense.
Don't try to stop me, Horace.
Nick hit it rich. Gambling. He buys a mansion. Of course, very quickly on, Barbara Streisand now has a little boy. Her husband has fallen into gambling again.
And debt.
Barbara, being the actress she is, she tries to help him financially get on his feet, and he's like,
no, stop it. I'm the man. I'm supposed to take care of myself.
She tries to help him with a business deal. He instead makes a deal with a mob boss, drugs, illegal stuff, and shockingly, it goes horribly wrong and he ends up in jail.
Oh my gosh, I hate him. Just listen to your awesome wife.
Men and their stupid ego. This is a problem now that Fanny has to deal with. Oh my goodness, her mother blames her for being like,
you didn't put your husband first, you put your work first, and now look what happened. Your much older man-child husband made a deal with some criminals and now he's in prison. This is your fault, Fanny.
What do you think she's been doing this entire time?
She meets Nick at the prison and is like, I'm prepared to be a better wife for you. And you know what he does? He's like, I'm gonna divorce you. Sorry.
I just wasn't good enough for you.
If you knew that was gonna happen, why did you date her? Why'd you marry her in the first place? So at the end of the film, the two of them divorce, and Fanny is obviously crestfallen, heartbroken, because in this story, he was her first love. They were married for several years, and after he ruined her life, he divorced her. Never ever have I hated a fictional character so much. This is even worse than Hardin, because, well, Hardin was toxic and abusive and ruined Tessa's life and her mental health and her sanity and everything about her. There's something so predatory about the way Nick Arnstein devoured Fanny's life, abused her, took advantage of her, took everything away from her, and then just dumped her. I was looking at Nick Arnstein and Fanny singing to each other in the musical, and the YouTube videos are full of comments of like, oh, this is so romantic, oh, they just have so much chemistry. Yeah, this groomer calling this vulnerable, insecure girl beautiful and her just like swooning over that, that's not chemistry. That's pedophilia. That's grooming. That's not romantic. What is wrong with you? So obviously there are more villainous characters in the world, but I feel like these just do not get the consequences they deserve. They don't get the hate they deserve, and I wanted to rant a little bit. I hope you enjoyed this video. It ate up so much of my phone storage, and it destroyed my hair, and there's barely any light left outside. Thank you.